Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech, protected.
Are we finally getting around to reviewing a movie this year?
Yes,
I'd say it's about time, wouldn't you?
I would.
So what are we waiting for?
The intro to start?
All that and more on Gory Story Time.
Warning. Gory Story Time is a horror movie review show by a son and his dad who thought that letting his 5-year-old watch scary movies was acceptable. If you are offended by horror or talk about blood and gore by a child, or if you don't want horror movies from the 60s through today spoiled, then there is a remote stuck in your couch cushion next to potato chip crumbs. Use it. And of course, parental discretion is advised.
Why? You didn't use any.
Shut up and start the show.
Welcome to Gory Story Time. I'm your host, Jason.
I'm his co-host and father, Craig. And yeah, we're actually going to review a movie this time.
Yeah, it's crazy to think.
Third episode in the year. Usually we do one preview, but we decided to do a review last week.
Yeah. And now we're going to
year.
a movie that we watched in October?
November, I think.
November? Early November.
But, all right. Basic premise, it's the Boogeyman. One of my favorite short stories by Stephen King.
Yeah.
It's like 10, 15 pages tops.
It's really good.
It's good.
Like, if you haven't read it, go read it now before we spoil the movie for you.
Because the movie
kind of feels like a sequel.
It does. With some references that make it the first time through.
Right. But, like, also,
yeah.
Like, read it first. It's only 15 pages. Like you said, I could read that.
Yeah, and he can barely read.
So,
he couldn't call 1-800-ABCDEFG to get hooked on phonics because he didn't know how to dial that number. He's like
padding the runtime.
He's like, Dad, I don't know what to do. Maybe if I have a problem with math, call 1-800 2 times 4 divided by 6 times 3. If that number's busy, call a train left Texas at 200 miles an hour. Anyway.
All right, then.
Sure. So here's the premise. There's a family. It's a father and his 2 daughters. And there's been a death. His wife had passed, and they're grieving over that. And worse than that, there seems to be some sort of creature living in the closets trying to murder everybody.
Yeah.
And he's too busy grieving to pay any attention to his kids' crazy ideas about there being a beast
thing?
in their house.
Home? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a thing that's happening here.
Yeah. That's basically what it is. And he's going to therapy because he's trying to deal with the loss of family members. And
he's a therapist?
Well, he knew a group of people who had all basically died from this thing and still doesn't listen to the kids.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't want to spoil too much, but that's the basic premise.
Yeah.
The kids know that there's a boogeyman. The dad's too busy grieving his dead wife to pay any attention, and that means the boogeyman is basically having open season on trying to take out the kids.
Just take out anybody.
And it's PG-13, right?
It's PG-13.
And
every once in a while I had to stop it to think to myself, this
is actually
really
good.
PG-13.
Yeah. Yep. But anyway, anything else you want to say about the premise? No?
No.
Then why don't we show them the trailer?
When there are scary things we don't understand, our minds try to fill in the blanks. Sometimes the best thing to do is to face it. So this light is going to be completely solid like it is right now. And gradually, is going to start flashing until it's totally dark. So you can see that there's nothing to be afraid of. Okay? See? That's not so scary, is it? Just you, your sister, and me.
You're doing okay. It's not real. It's okay. It's okay. It's all just in your head.
Katie, there's something in my room. You believe me, don't you?
There's no such thing as monsters. You need to grow up. I'm serious, Sawyer. I need to be alone.
You're both having these manifestations. What is this supposed to be? It's the thing that comes for your kids when you're not paying attention.
Dad, you have to listen to me.
Okay. I'm listening. Sweetheart, let me handle it.
Yeah, so, if that didn't sell you, leave.
Oh, okay. That's
I'm gonna die on that hill.
as the other person that hosts this show. I don't want you to leave. Actually, like, subscribe, comment,
Share.
share.
Hate clicks. It's alright. I already dissed you, apparently.
Anyway, before we get into the behind the scenes information, and wasn't really a lot. Usually I try to find 10 things for each of us. There wasn't that much that I could find. We have to give a shout out to our sponsors. This week, our sponsors are, let's see. Gory Story Time is brought to you by Stretching for Screenwriters. Did you ever wonder how a 15-page story can become a whole movie? Stretching for Screenwriters is the book that shows you how to take the original story and stretch it to fill out 90 minutes of runtime without breaking a sweat. Stretching for Screenwriters has advice for writers of the Grinch Stole Christmas movies and Children of the Corn and more.
Nice.
Stretching for Screenwriters, the best runtime padding you'll ever see fill up time on the screen.
Alright.
And by
the Placating Therapists. The Placating Therapists are the first group of therapists who nod and act like your ridiculous claims aren't insane. You think the world is flat? Sure, why not? You got a demonic spirit that lives in your closet. If you say so. Birds aren't real? We all know about that. The Placating Therapists. Because you may be nuts, but we want you to feel good about it.
Sounds fair. All right. You'd think they would have left a number or some way to contact them. It's so weird that they never do that.
1-800-555.
Don't do 555. All right, now we're going to get into what Jason likes to lovingly call the meat and beef of the show.
Or, as I like to lovingly call, the meat and beef of the show.
It's the behind-the-scenes information that we like to give out. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to?
Sure, I will.
Go ahead.
A film adaptation of a short story written by Stephen King that was originally featured in a March 1973 issue of Cavalier magazine and later in Night Shift, a collection of short stories all written by Stephen King. So, it was in a magazine. That's how short this story was. You can go read it.
Most of his collections of short stories were things he had printed in Playboy, in Cavalier. And he would send out short stories because they were always looking for short fiction.
I wonder how many people bought those specific nudie mags. because they had his
Cavalier's
story.
not a nudie mag.
Right, but you said the other one
I said
there.
Playboy, but
Yeah, they're nude.
A lot of okay, but that's not the point. He would any magazine that looked for short stories.
Right, so I'm wondering how many people bought it for the Stephen King story.
Well, considering he wasn't really known yet,
Oh, I don't know.
probably not many.
Huh.
Originally meant to be released as a straight to streaming on Hulu, but the strong reception from test screenings prompted 20th Century Studios to give it a wide theatrical release.
In other words, that's Disney. The scene where
Disney
Sawyer
said, "Wait, do I smell $1 that we could make?"
Oh my God. And it's already made. Heck yeah. All right. The scene where Sawyer, played by Vivian Lyra Blair, wets her pants in fear after the light show therapy in Dr. Wallace's office is a direct nod to the Stephen King short story when Lester Billings wets himself after seeing the boogeyman right at the end of the tale.
Some scenes were so intense they had to be changed after the test screening. The audience screamed so loud that important dialogue after the scene was lost. So editing was changed to put in pauses so the dialogue would be heard. I can say neither one of us screamed once during
Jumped a couple times.
Oh yeah, I'll give it jumped.
Chilling.
Hair raising on the arms,
edge
sure.
of the seat. If I was sitting on the chair, I was
But
on the edge of my seat.
I was firmly planted in the square in the middle of my seat in a relaxed position, but whatever. To each their own.
I was probably nodding my legs or whatever.
Anyway.
Yeah.
You got
4?
number 5.
5, yeah. The Harper family live at number 19, which is an important number in the Stephen King universe.
Speaking of Stephen King universe things, there was a painting of a turtle visible in the Harper's home. The turtle, anyone that knows the book It,
Maturin.
Yeah, knows that it holds a very important place in Stephen King's lore.
I mean, considering he lives with the universe on his back. The Billings family live at 217, which is a nod to The Shining, room 217. On the Overlook is in the...
It's the room that keeps calling for Danny. I know you're thinking, don't you mean 237? No, we do not. In the book, it was 217. It was one of those things that was changed for no real reason. And one of the things that annoyed Stephen King about The Shining.
Is the room that keeps calling for Danny. Okay, I was reading the sentence over and over again in my head, and it wasn't making sense.
Anyway.
The number didn't bother me.
It is not related to Uli Lomel's The Boogeyman from 1980 or Boogeyman of 2005. But there have been other versions of it.
That 05 movie was decent.
The most known one that Stephen King was involved with was he wrote the script for Cat's Eye, and it was the worst possible adaptation. The third story, they kind of did this, but had a cat kill a gnome-looking thing from the closet. Like, it was obviously meant to be this, but totally done wrong.
Nobody died in that.
Well, that's not true, because...
In Cat's Eye? Except for the gnome little thing.
The second guy that had to go around the building. Well, he doesn't
count. He's the bad guy.
Well, death is death. Anyway.
9. Sadie comes out of her bedroom wearing a gray sweatshirt, sweatpants, and socks to investigate strange noises coming from her mom's studio. As she steps in, a red liquid pooling from under the door. You'll notice that she no longer has socks on her feet.
Believe it or not, I wasn't
not looking at her feet.
Like, that's weird.
All right.
Around the 48-minute mark, as the camera moves inside the room looking out at Mrs. Billings, you can see the cameraman's shadow on the door.
Will Harper recites lyrics from the song Bare Necessities from the Disney movie The Jungle Book.
And the YouTube video on how to contact the dead that Sadie watches references Rob Savage's previous film Host from 2020 with the same location and actress, Salyn Baxter, from that film. So it's a shared universe with his other film.
That is it.
Yeah, we didn't...
There was barely any meat and beef.
But what I can tell you is that there is a website called Rotten Tomatoes, and they don't rate movies. They're getting farther from their original goal, I believe. But basically, if you are a critic, not us because we don't count.
We don't count.
To be fair, we haven't tried.
Right?
Well, we don't have enough of a following yet, so share and subscribe and all that.
Yeah, comment links of our videos on like Siskel and Ebert.
On Siskel and okay, well, first of all, no, neither of them are a thing at this point.
Really?
Dude.
What?
Never mind.
I didn't know.
Apparently he thinks we're the Siskel and Ebert of horror, which is not close to true. But anyway,
No, they hated
all the critics give their review, and they just take a conglomeration of all the positive and negative. They just decide, is it positive or negative in general, and then they tell you the percent of positive reviews. So the larger the number, the more positive reviews from critics. They also do that where you can go in as a person, and the people get to vote too. What do the critics say?
The critics have this at a 60%.
So 60% of critics gave it a passing grade.
Yes. And then after some digging, because they were hiding the answer from me.
The people have it at 74%, which makes sense. Again, for those who haven't heard this before,
the people usually like horror movies more.
Horror, comedy,
musicals,
and not so much musicals. They basically anything that's not dramatic and real entertainment,
or like
some
like, kids movie. Kids movies usually get rated high.
Depends on the messaging. But anyway, yeah, so 74% from the people. Now, we're going to talk about our least favorite and our favorite things.
Oh, heck yeah.
I'm going to start with least favorite since we liked this movie. We usually go with the one that's a little harder to do. I don't like the look of the Boogeyman, the way they do the black, long, like, shadowy thing. It's a generic thing at this point. It was in Lights Out. It was in so many things where it's just like wispy, long, look kind of like what are those things from Harry Potter, the Dementors? Like,
okay.
Do you remember what?
No, I remember what that looks like.
I mean, they basically make these things like long, shadowy things. That's not what's described in the story at all. What's described is basically a beast that's the size of a dwarf that like tries to like take you out. That's the one thing Cat's Eye got right by making it like a garden gnome almost. Not really, but I mean that's how it was a monster. But what are you looking at?
We're remembering two completely different looks on this thing because it was like wet.
And also, there was a lot of
it was like white,
creepy, long,
and it was
thin
wet.
shadows.
It was like wet and
there
trippy.
There was a lot of the shadows.
It was wet. More than anything.
The point is, I just didn't like the look of it. And it didn't fit the description in the story.
I'm having a more difficult time with a negative thing. Probably it could have been longer. Like it feels like it kind of cut short. I know, 15 pages.
It was a 15-page story, people, and he thinks it needed longer than 90 minutes.
Well, for the story that they were telling in this movie, which was obviously different than the book version.
Oh, yeah.
Like, obviously. It feels like they cut the end of it off to just kind of do the ending of the book.
I mean, the book comes to that sudden, abrupt end.
But, like, in a movie, that doesn't work.
It really... Or, then I'll give a very famous example, The Blair Witch. It comes to a very sudden, shocking end, and most people were creeped the hell out by it. He was like, I don't know, it's a bunch of people swearing for an hour and a half, and then it stopped.
See, now I have that opinion, but with a thumbs up. All right? So
he hasn't proved his opinion on that movie.
It's like, I actually like that this is just a bunch of 20-year-olds running in circles, swearing for 90 minutes. That's very interesting.
Reminded him of his friends.
It kind of, actually. Unfortunately.
And he remembers the time he kicked the map into the...
Yeah, I threw it in the river.
I wonder if that's what happened when Moses was crossing the desert in the Bible. I wonder if it's like the reason they were lost for 40 years was some jerk was like, I'm sick of this, and kicked the map away. Anyway.
Coming soon.
I knew you'd get the reference. So,
didn't I say?
Yeah. So now we're gonna. I think you did.
Favorite.
Yeah.
Comment down below what I said.
Honestly, I liked that it really was creepy. As much as I said I didn't like the way the creature looked or whatever, they did. It's not that it wasn't creepy. I based that solely on having loved the story. You know?
Oh, yeah.
I liked the callbacks. It was definitely... I think my favorite part is that it was basically a sequel. It
didn't try to ruin anything in the book by making it, this isn't the book. That's what happened in the book, and this happens right after.
Like, if you read that story, it's like, this is the next step.
Right. Like, this feels like it ends with,
because the people
starts with...
The deaths that were at the beginning,
of this.
It does start with that, were like the people
that was
from
the family.
Story. Right. So...
Yeah.
So
it's a sequel.
I mean, they got some of that wrong, because the person with all the candles in the house and whatever, but anyway, what was your favorite part?
My favorite part was, the beginning. Because it felt to me like this was the movie showing that it has balls, all right?
For PG-13?
For PG-13. Because not even 10 seconds into there being light on the screen, that shadowy, long, wet, white creature sneaks into a room and then murders an infant in its crib.
Yeah, just takes him out.
And that's like 15 seconds into this movie.
Yeah. And for PG-13, it's like, okay, well, they're pushing the boundaries. But anyway, is that about everything?
Yeah.
All right. So...
rating.
Oh, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to go with a 7.
I'm going to meet him with a 7, actually.
It's not that it's not really good. It's just... I'm such a fan of the original that, like, I would love to see that on the screen.
Basically, you read the story, you watch the movie, and then you can kind of put it to rest.
Sure. Like, it's not something I'm going to go back a lot of times.
Exactly. I mean, the original was depressing.
If I show people the story, I might show them the movie.
Yeah, it pairs well together.
Like, I'm not saying I'll never watch it again. I'm saying it's not something where I'm like, oh, I need to watch this every year.
Yeah.
And there's some movies that I do feel that way. Like, it's been too long since we watched Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Like, the whole series.
Well, 7?
7.
7.
Yeah.
Solid 7.
All right.
So now there's going to be stuff next to my head. Boom. You can watch this show on Fact TV channel 1082, Thursdays at 8:30 p.m. and Fridays at 7 p.m.
You can like us on Facebook, and like I say every time, like Gory Story Time, but also like Fact TV, the people that let us do this since you were 13. He's going to be 23. It's almost a decade, people, that we've done this show. A decade.
A decade. And all we've got to show for it is what, 280 episodes?
Yeah, we're pushing 300 episodes. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. You can go to www.factdate.com and watch a bunch of the back episodes of this as well as all of their content.
And you can follow us on X. I'm at Craig Jakes, all one word, all lowercase.
I'm at Jiggly Fernbrain. I only tweet things that he says that I find funny.
And then go to YouTube, search Gory Story Time. The two things that'll come up is Fact TV and Gory Story Time have their own pages. Like, subscribe, notification bell, comment, share. Like, we would love people to see this. We don't make any money off it because, we keep getting hit for using the trailers and stuff, even though we're using it the way they say we're allowed to.
Yeah.
Because we're using it to make commentary on the thing, but whatever.
See, as long as you don't post it as it is in its original form, and you do either doctor it, like we do, it gets down into a small little box, that's no longer the original format.
No, I know, but...
And then we talk around it, 100% legal use, and we should be making money off of it.
Well, we can't make money off of it with... We need more subscribers, people.
Subscribe.
Anyway.
Share, follow, like, comment. I've been your host, Jason.
I'm his co-host and father, Craig.
And sweet dreams.